Hi, I'm Sue O'Hora. I'm Henninger's writer-producer, and today we're going to talk about writing good interview questions. In a previous video, I covered how to write a 2-column working script for a documentary or a marketing project, and there's a link in the description below to that. If you haven't seen it yet, you might want to watch it before you watch this video because I will reference it. So interviews are obviously a huge part of a lot of documentaries. They're really helpful for telling your story, whether that is a documentary or whether it's a marketing project. Interviews let people tell a story in their own words, and usually it lets them tell it with a little bit of emotion. And emotion is the thing that you get transmitted to your audience. You want your audience to feel emotion. So it's an important and really valuable way to do that. And part of the working script process is imagining the sorts of things people might say when you're interviewing them. And so, you have to write questions to get those types of answers. So let's dive in and figure out how we can write interview questions that get good responses. So my first tip is do your research. If the person has written articles, if the person has had a blog, if they've given on-camera interviews, try to read those, try to watch those, get familiar with how they talk about the topic. If you can't do that, you can conduct a pre-interview, which is just a simple phone call to talk to the person and ask general, sort of broad brush questions about what you're going to be talking about. Get a chance to hear how they talk about it, and also get a little bit of a chance to read if they're a short yes or no answer type of person, or if they are a more, voluminous talker than that. And that's helpful to know before you sit down in front of cameras to speak. My next tip is to ease into it. Just sit down across from your interview subject and start chatting before the interview. Some people, when you sit them down across from a camera, it's an intimidating experience. They see the lights, there's somebody putting on a microphone, and it is just uncomfortable for them. If you can take the focus off of everything that's going on in the room by just sitting down and starting a rapport with them and getting to know them a little bit, you increase your chances that once the camera's rolling, everything around them will fall away and they'll just be really engaging and really comfortable on camera with you. My next tip is to keep your questions short and sweet. So what you really want to do is focus on a single idea per question and keep your questions as short and sort of simply phrased as you can. It just makes them easier to understand in the moment and easier to answer. A lot of times if you can ask a person a 2-part question, they'll only pay attention to the first part and answer the first part, and they'll miss the second part anyway, and you'll have to prompt them again anyway. My next tip is to really listen and ask follow-up questions. This one is the hardest one. It takes a little bit of practice when you're in the middle of interviewing someone to hear them say something that sort of triggers a new question in your mind, or maybe you think, hey, that could be an interesting avenue to explore, and to kind of keep that in your mind and remember to ask that follow-up question. The good thing about it is that if you can do that effectively, you may be able to open up a whole new avenue for your story. You may find an incredible anecdote. You don't want to just stick to your scripted questions for fear that you could miss something great by not asking that follow-up question. And if it's hard in the moment, keep a little notepad in your lap and just write down a couple word, prompts so that you can remember, hey, I wanted to ask about that, and actually ask it. And hopefully you'll find some new good information in that question and answer back and forth. Ask about emotions. So asking about how something made a person feel can help sort of transport them back in time, or it can put them in the place and in the vibe of what you're asking them about. And that can trigger great memories and great anecdotes. Even in a marketing video, that can be helpful. If you ask somebody, hey, I know you've worked really, really hard on this product rollout. How do you feel about it? And they give you an answer like, man, I feel really, really excited about this product rollout. I think it's going to be fantastic for our clients. Well, most likely your audience are those clients. And that is something, where you want that emotion to be transmitted to your audience. So that could be a great answer to get from someone. My next tip is to avoid giving the exact questions to your interview subject in advance. So if you can avoid it, maybe you give the person the basic topics you'll cover if they really press you. But if you can avoid it, don't give them the exact questions. And the reason you don't do that is that some people will fixate on those questions and try to memorize their answers. And then when you ask them the question on camera, they'll either seem kind of scripted and insincere, which you want to avoid, or they will not be able to remember the exact answers as they had them in their head, and they'll start to stumble and they'll get flustered and they'll get kind of frustrated with themselves. Both of those are more uncomfortable than just giving the person a vague sense of what you're going to talk about and then letting them hopefully answer and build that rapport with you and answer more naturally on camera. Another thing to avoid is to avoid yes or no questions. That's pretty self-explanatory. If you ask somebody, ask somebody anything and they answer yes or no, you don't have much to edit with, unfortunately. So they don't encourage people to reframe the question in their answer, and they don't give you much context. And that sort of leads to my next tip, which is ask the interview subject to repeat the question in their answer. You might have somebody, you ask them, how did you meet your husband? And they answer, at a party. Well, at a party is not really a complete answer. It doesn't give you context. It doesn't really give away what your question was, and it's hard to edit with. If you say, how did you meet your husband? And they say, I met my husband at a party in college. That's great. That's a complete answer, and it's easy to edit with. You might also have somebody where rephrasing it into their answer isn't as natural, but you can have them say the question. Oh, how did I meet my husband? Well, my friend in college threw a party and we both were there and we met. That's also a complete answer and something that would be really, easy to edit with. Let me give you an example of the type of interview, soundbite you might be trying to get, and then some questions that might get that out of somebody. So let's say you're making a video about an artist, and this is the sort of thing you're trying to get from them. Everything changed for me in 2005. I lost my day job and I decided it was now or never, and I dedicated myself to my art 8 to 10 hours a day, like a full-time job, and I said I wouldn't quit until I had a show in a gallery or was totally flat broke, whichever came first. And 7 months later, I had my first gallery showing, and it was a big success. So to get an answer like that, you might ask questions like, tell me about 2005. What did that year mean for your career? And if you didn't get exactly what you wanted from that, you might try something like this. What was your philosophy around that time in your career? What led you to your breakout exhibition? They're leading questions, but by themselves, they're not super difficult to answer. They kind of put that person back in the time and the place. They ask a little bit about emotion. They're very much designed to get that kind of full, complete answer out of somebody. So every person you interview will be different. The level of comfort is the biggest differentiator sometimes between people. You'll have somebody who's given tons of interviews and they're wonderful on camera and they totally get it and they just do it naturally. You'll have people who have never been on camera before and they're really intimidated by the whole process, and it takes a long time to get them to warm up and like build that rapport with you, and that's just something you've got to practice as an interviewer. And then you'll get lucky sometimes and have people who've never been on camera in their life, and you put them on there and everything falls away and they just talk really naturally. And that's really wonderful when that happens. Your goal as an interviewer is simply to put people at ease and get them to open up and tell their story in their own words. And thoughtful, uncomplicated questions, can really help you get good responses that are going to be really valuable for you during the editing process. So thank you for watching. If you like this video, please comment, like, or subscribe to the channel. We cover production topics like this, and we also offer a variety of post-production topics as well. We do watch the comments, so if you have any suggestions for us, you have other topics you'd like us to explore, just please comment and we will see it. And otherwise, have a great day, and thank you very much for watching the channel.